Hey there, this is Tanner Steed. I thought I would show you a really cool process that I learned recently on how to make these cardboard panels that are very inexpensive and actually a really nice quality surface to paint on. What we have here is a very simple panel. All it is an MDF board. I like to use the ones by Jack Richardson. I get them at my local art store. They're very inexpensive. They're untempered masonite, not tempered masonite, so they come really, really smooth. And in order to get the gesso to stick, you actually have to sand them down. So this is the sandpaper that I use to sand the MDF board before I apply the first layer of gesso. So it is a medium tooth, the 120. Now, the reason why you do this is to get the gesso to actually stick onto the panel. If you were to try to apply the gesso onto the panel without sanding it down, it would just slide right off or peel right off. So this is to give it some tooth for something to hold on to for those early layers. So you can feel the texture. Kind of feels like it has hairs rather than being that smooth finish. Here's one that is not sanded. I'm not sure if the camera is going to be able to pick up on it, because it is quite subtle in person. This is nice and smooth. This kind of feels like it has hairs on it. So I have a couple different options for acrylic gesso. I've found that they both work equally as well. They just provide a different absorbency. So really, you'll just have to experiment with the gesso that you prefer. Today I'm going to be using this by Liquitex. It's just the basic white gesso. Another one that I use is golden. It really should be quite thin on the first panel, and I don't thin it out with any water. So I just add just a little bit, and you'll be very surprised by how far a very little bit of gesso goes. Now, I'm not going to use a brush, and that is just my preference because I really like smooth surfaces. It just works with the way that I paint. So I'm going to be taking this cake spatula, and this is for like frosting cakes, and I'm going to be doing exactly that. I'm going to try to make this as smooth as possible rather than having brush strokes. Now, if you want brush strokes, you can use either a really soft bristle brush, or you can use like a chip brush to create those lines, kind of like a texture, or a texture mimicking a canvas. But yeah, for today I'm going to be using this. So just start out with spreading it as evenly as possible, and I'm just letting it kind of levitate on top rather than pushing down. I'm just trying to get it to spread as thinly as possible. Now at this stage, if it isn't sticking to the panel, that usually means that you did not sand it enough. Now, because this is acrylic gesso, water-based, it does dry very quickly, which is good, because I like to put about 3 layers of gesso onto my panels. I have a piece of cardboard beneath my panels, and that's because as I slide this spatula across, it will drip down onto whatever is below. So it doesn't have to be perfect at this stage, because after this, I'm going to be taking a fine grit sandpaper and go over the whole thing and sand it down. Okay, so that's what my first layer is looking like. It's a bit patchy, but that's okay. I'm gonna sand it after this, and we're gonna do 2 more layers of gesso. In between layers, if you are using a spatula, you have to clean it. Because if the gesso dries on this and you try to apply the second layer, third layer, what will happen is any of the gesso that's accumulated on the bottom of the spatula will actually drag a mark and prevent you from making it really smooth. So make sure you wipe it off with a paper towel or go rinse it under a sink, but make sure there is nothing on the bottom. So this is the sandpaper that I'm going to be using to sand in between layers. So it's a fine grit sandpaper, and it's the 220. And I'm just going to repeat the process until I have 3 layers, and on that final layer I'll make sure to sand it nice and smooth, make sure there aren't any ridge lines. On this second layer I can go a little bit thicker. It's going to grab to the first layer a lot easier than it did to the MDF panel. It's also really important that you do not paint on these for 24 hours. The gesso has to dry, otherwise if you're painting on it with acrylic or with oils, it's just going to re-wet and your paint won't stick. So wait 24 hours. Hey, you still here? Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Give me a like, comment, let me know what you're thinking. If you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know. Thank you.